get started with racing pigeons?
So I've had pigeons since I'm 5 years old. My dad used to be, I grew up in the Bronx, New York, and at that time, just about every rooftop had a pigeon coop on it. And my dad was a TV repairman, so he'd always have to go up on a roof to fix the antennas. In those days, they had antennas to run their TV sets. So as a little kid, I'd go with him, and we'd go up on top of these roofs, and there'd always be fancy pigeon coops up there, big ones. I'm talking 1,000 birds at a time.
Racing pigeons?
No, these were flights. These were tipplers. These were fancy birds, all different colors. And when you're young, that age, you get intrigued by the colorful pigeons. So I started keeping fancy pigeons in my backyard. My dad gave me an old TV set, a big box, and I put pigeons in there. And I had a couple of them in my yard. I think I was about 10 years old. At that point, I probably had maybe 20 fancies. I went to visit relatives out in Long Island, and next door to them was a racing pigeon guy. And before we went there, my dad told me, he says, "Hey, bring your box because this guy has racing pigeons and he wants to give you some to bring home." Uh-huh. So I thought, well, racing pigeons, they look like the ones on the boardwalk or the street pigeons. I don't want those. So anyway, I bring a box. The guy puts, I think it was 15 birds in this big box that I brought. And he said to me, "When you go home, let these birds out." And he said, "I'll call you when they get back here." Now, we were driving for an hour to get there. So I said to my dad, "I'm not letting him out. He's going to lose all those pigeons." And my dad said, "No, you got to let him out. The guy asked you to do it."
Okay.
So we get home. I let him out. An hour later, the guy calls me up and he goes, "Okay, they're here." And I go, "What?"
You were amazed.
I was amazed. I go, "How could birds do it? How could they find their way home?" I mean, I lose them around the house, these fancies. The next day, I looked for every racing pigeon guy in my neighborhood. Knocked on the door. "Hey, here I am with my bicycle.
Yeah.
Hey, can I see your racing pigeons?" "Yeah, come on in." They were all nice guys.
So you started young.
Yeah, I was 10 years old. They all had a nickname: Red Roof, Frank the Zip, you name it, Joe the Plumber.
Okay.
They all had it. They were all over my neighborhood were pigeons. So I got intrigued by the racing pigeons. I started to study them. And then, I drifted away from the pigeons. Mm-hmm. Eventually, I went to school, got out of them for years, came to the San Fernando Valley in 1978, didn't have pigeons all that time. And I decided I was going to have fancy pigeons in the San Fernando Valley. Uh-huh. So I built a pigeon coop on top of a gas station.
Really?
Where I had a car lot. And all the traffic would stop on all four corners and people would be yelling up and waving at me, "Hey, let those pigeons out. I used to have them when I was a kid." So one day I catch a racing homer. Yeah. And it's got a band on its leg. So I look up the person that owns the pigeon. And the band on its leg, the pigeon belonged to a guy named Bill Rice. Well, Bill Rice happened to be the president of the FEC club at that time. Okay. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, Bill," I said, "I got some pigeon here. I think it might be yours." "Oh, yeah, it's mine. I'll come over and get it." So he comes over. He says, "What are you doing with those fancies?" He says, "You got to have racing birds. I'll give you some. Guys in my club will give you some." So 2 days later, Department of Building and Safety shows up. They said, "You can't have those pigeons up on the roof. Take them down, and we're going to give you a fine." Yeah. Took all the pigeons down, called up Bill Rice. He says, "I want you to go see a friend of mine. He's in the car business. His name is Marty Ladden." I said, "Okay." I drive out to a car dealership because I was in the car business, so I made that connection. Yeah. I went into the Ladden Lincoln Mercury. Marty was a big-time pigeon flyer in the valley. We hit it off right away. He said to me, "I want you to come over to my house this weekend and have a big fraternity race." Go over his house. There's got to be 20 guys in the yard. Everybody's betting money, gambling.
Okay.
And I was like, man, I was a big-time sports gambler at the time. I thought, this is where I belong. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, Marty helped me build a loft. I had a little house in Arleta. I built a little pigeon coop. Marty gave me a bunch of eggs to hatch out. Some of them hatched, some of them didn't. All the guys in the club gave me a few birds. And I started from there. I was off the line of flight. I was second on my third race I flew from there. Guys in those days were very secretive.
Yeah.
You know, they basically just told you, hey, give them food and water.
Food, water.
And that's it,
Yeah.
you know, and you're on your way.
Yeah.
So I gave them food and water, and lo and behold, I was third in the race. So that was good enough for me. So anyway, I just enjoyed the guys in the club that day. Everybody was diehard pigeon guys. I mean,
Do they talk smack back then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, we had a lunch group.
Yeah.
We'd meet for lunch every day. Every day, 10, 12 guys at a table.
Okay.
And every day one guy would get picked on if he was late that week. I mean, everybody would rag.
I like that.
I mean, this guy would go home crying. And I was sitting at a table at that time with Ed Lorenz, Pete Lorenz, Danny Hines, Art Heese, Tony Sanzo, Rocky Lambert, Larry Felt, you name it. All these guys were top pigeon guys. They came from a different area to fly in the valley.
Okay.
It was so competitive here. The money was so great that you just couldn't help yourself.
Yeah.
So 1989, I mean, I lived in Arleta. I didn't think I could win from there. I bought a house in Northridge by the Cal State Northridge College.
Uh-huh.
I flew there. Didn't think I could win from there. Started looking for a house in the valley, in the bowling alley, and I stumbled on this being built at the time. This was 1989, and I thought, well, this is a good spot because the birds have to come right over my house.
So when you bought your house, you thought
it
about
was
your
all
pigeons.
all pigeons.
You thought about your location. Oh,
I couldn't care less about the house. It was all about the backyard.
Wow.
I told my wife, you can do the house, I own the backyard. And most pigeon guys will do it that way. I remember my friend Steve Baldwin telling me a story. He said, I asked him, I said, how come you got divorced, one day? And he said, well, my wife made this beautiful dinner one night, and I came home from work, I walked right through the house, I went right to the pigeon loft, and everything on the table got cold. She came out with her bags packed and said, I'm out of here.
Is that true story?
It's a true story. And I've seen a lot of guys get divorced over pigeons. So if I could
Don't say that, my wife's going to hear it.
I'm going to give you a little bit of advice now. I always tell everybody this, and I've stuck to it myself. This is very good advice for everybody out there. Okay? Listen. Always remember this. Family first, work second, pigeons third. If you can keep that order in your life, you'll have a happy wife.
Okay. All right.
So,
that's a good tip.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys who can't. They get obsessed with this sport. And I was one of them. I got obsessed. But in the off season, I always made sure that the family came first. I would take them to Hawaii. I would take them on trips. I would be at every event that my kids had, all their graduations, whatever.
You got to be there.
You got to be there. You got to be there. You got to divide it both ways. And you got to give your wife what she needs, give your kids and your family what they need, and your hobby will be fun. I mean, they'll allow you to do it.
Yeah.
I have the most beautiful wife. I mean, she is so caring. And she tells me all the time, I would rather you be in the backyard with those birds than in a bar with another girl.
Oh, yeah.
She's happy when I'm with the pigeon guys because she knows that I can get in trouble doing other things. My reputation preceded me.
All right.
So with that, I've flown 40 years now. This is my 40th year in the FEC.
40th year. So you've been racing for 40 years.
This is my 40th year. I think I've missed maybe 2 or 3 seasons. I couldn't fly Old Birds every year because of work.
Uh-huh.
I partnered up with Roger Sikora in 2002, only because I needed a trainer at that point. And we were like Huskins Van Reel. I mean, we were winning everything. In 02, from 02 to 2015, we won every prize, every category you could win in the FEC. I mean, champion.
So you guys
Loft.
were dominating.
We dominated. We really
But
did.
still now, you still dominate.
Somewhat. I mean, yeah, but in those days, we won Digest Loft of the Year. We won AU Hall of Fame. We won All-American Loft. We won President's Cup Awards. We won, I mean, I'll give you a list of all the championships we won, and I almost forgot all of them. So, yeah, and that's what it takes. It takes dedication. If you're a student of the game, if you study, myself, I read every pigeon book, I watch every pigeon video. Still to this day, I'm a pigeon fanatic, and I always want to learn something new, even if it's, you know, what to put in the bath water, you know, something trivial. I always get something. I always respect people that beat me. I always shake the hand of the champion. You have to learn how to lose to learn how to win. Those things are important. I don't ever accuse anybody of using drugs that beat me. I think that's absolutely critical to destroying a pigeon club. People being accused of taking drugs. You know, you just, if a guy beats you, man, just shake his hand. Go look at the pigeon the next day. When I was beginning in this game, these guys in the FEC, they would come to my loft on the weekend if I just got a good bird home. They wanted to handle the bird. They wanted to know what it was out of. They wanted to know. And that's how you gain respect. You know, success doesn't come in a bottle. It doesn't come overnight. You could get there. Everybody could get there. You just have to really, really pay attention and love the game. You got to love it in your heart. You got to want to get better. You got to want your pigeons to get better every year. You got to improve. If it means buying better birds, buy better birds. If it means mating different ways, mate different ways. But don't abuse the animals.
Okay. Wow. All right. You are very well known as the best fancier here in California. So, how do you do it, Carl? What's the tips or secret to success, to your success?
Well, look, it's not one thing. I've been successful because I think my passion for creating a better pigeon never goes away. Every time I breed a baby, by 30 days old, I know whether I hit the mark on that baby or whether I didn't.
By 30 years old?
30 days old. It's going to be as good as it, in my mind, it's going to be as good as it's ever going to be. I can tell if it's going to be good or bad by 30 days old. And that's because I've done it for so long, and you know, you just get a feel for the good ones. And
so selecting your birds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, it takes that kind of student of the game. You have to have stock knowledge. You have to. I firmly believe that it all starts with the pigeon, and then it becomes the loft, the handler, and the methods, in that order. So you got to start with the pigeons. When I was beginning, I got pigeons from everywhere, from everybody. Today, I don't look to bring in anything from anywhere because I have the pigeons I want for the most part, and I don't want to change that or mess it up. I'm a firm believer in line breeding to create.
No inbreeding.
No inbreeding. I don't believe in inbreeding. I line breed my pigeons, cousins, aunts, uncles, half brothers, half sisters, grandparents to grandchildren. I love that. I always look to have 4 winners, or at least 2 winners and 2 breeders in all the grandparents of the birds I breed. It's very important that the grandparents, because birds will skip a generation when you're breeding them, so you want the grandparents to either be flyers or breeders. Okay. That's important. I explained to you a little bit earlier about pairing birds up.
Yeah.
You have to have some sort of a stock sense. By that I mean, you got to look at the 2 birds. You got to see if they look good together. Do they jump? When you put them in a box together, do they run right to each other? Do they not like each other? Do they fight? If they do, I separate them right away. then structure. The structure is important when you're breeding. You want to make sure that your birds have the kind of structure you want. And myself personally, I like pigeons that are apple body, that have a very strong frame, that have strong vents, that have a short forearm, that have great feather, that pull on the beak. When I pull on the beak, they got to pull back, and the harder they pull, the more I like them.
Hens or cock, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I like a bulging eye, especially on the hens. My cocks, they don't have the bulging eye as much because their head's bigger, but for the most part, on the hens, I want that bulging eye. I want to be able to see it when I look at them from on top.
Okay.
I like rich eye color. I like a small pupil. So as far as structure, that's very, very important, and that's where you got to start. So from there, I go to the loft. The next most important thing to me is the racing loft. I've probably tinkered with my loft for 20 years until I got it right. The loft is very important. By that I mean it's got to be comfortable, it's got to be safe, it's got to be healthy, and I don't mean clean, I just mean healthy. Dry, it's got to be dry. The birds have to feel like they would feel in a dove cove. That's nature. Get back to nature. Design your loft so that the birds can hide. When I go into ship a race, sometimes I leave birds home because they're hiding on me. I can't find them. Whoa. And I love that. I love that. I left my winners home and I had to drive home from the club to get them because they were hiding in a corner somewhere, and I missed them. So what I do is I like to put little boxes, boards, places where the pigeons can hide.
Okay.
I like to keep the loft dark. I don't like light in the loft. I like it so that they're comfortable.
Okay.
I don't like the pigeons to be able to see any vermin, cats, hawks, possums, raccoons.
You don't have a problem here with the rats? Or...
I have them all the time. The birds don't see them. If you look at my lofts at night, my lofts are closed up. There's no screens that they're out. Everything's sealed up. The hatches are battened down. And I do that on purpose because I want them at night to feel safe in their environment. And that's important because, look, you want them to come home. You want them to hurt themselves coming home from a race. Because that's what they do. They hurt themselves to come home. They're not going to do that if they don't feel safe.
Yep.
It's the first rule of pigeon flying. They have to feel comfortable and they have to feel safe in their home. So always look at your loft. Always, think of how you can improve it. Make it better for the pigeons to be comfortable.
So it's better if your loft is closed, not open.
Yeah, I live in California. I can have an open loft, but I don't. In fact, my loft at one time had open floors. When I first built it, it had drop-through floors. I closed them up. My floors today are all solid wood. Now, guys win with open floors, and it's probably healthier for the fancier to have open floors. Some guys have asthma and things like that. And, I like the solid floors because I like it to be quiet in the loft at night. I don't want anything moving around underneath it. I don't want any vermin to get in. And
you could observe the droppings too.
Most of all, I can observe the droppings. I was getting to that, the most important thing. And that's something, I have box perches. Every bird has a box that they go in. And when I'm racing and I'm in the heat of competition, I'm in my loft in the middle of the night with a flashlight.
Wow.
So I'm checking every single bird's dropping. And I'm making sure if one of them needs to come out, if one of them needs to be medicated, yes, I do medicate. I will pull that bird out, I'll give it a pill for whatever it needs, and if it doesn't turn around in the next couple of days, I'll watch the rest of the team carefully and make sure nobody else looks sick, and go from there. So yeah, it takes
Wow.
a keen eye. If I'm in the middle of a race season, I'll feed my birds by hand in the loft twice a day.
By hand?
By hand. I take the food in my hand, they'll come up on my hand, they'll eat it, then I'll throw it on the floor. I feed my birds on the floor, and I feed them in trays in the off season. But during the races, I feed my birds on the floor, let them fight for the grains.
No tray.
Not when I'm racing.
Okay.
Only when they come home. When they come home, I don't throw feed all over the floor.
Yeah.
Because the droppings tend to be wet then for the next day. But leading up to the race, I'll feed them right on the floor as long as the floor is dry.
Okay.
And I do that on purpose. Because I want to know who is the most aggressive, who is the least aggressive, who goes for the water first, who drinks the most water. I write all this down before the race.
That's how you pick your pig bird, or?
That's how I pick birds.
Okay.
That's why I win the pools. I mean, listen, it's common sense. I mean, I have to figure out, I can't see inside a pigeon's head. I can't see inside its heart. I can only see what it's showing me in the loft before I ship it.
Okay.
So there's little signs that a bird will tell you when it's in form, if it's a pool bird or not. Now, having said that, I don't win all the pools all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other guys that pick pool birds. I'm amazed, whatever they do. But I do what I do. And it works for me.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe that'll help people. Maybe it won't. Maybe people have time to do what I do. Maybe they don't. But that's what it takes to win, at least in my club, over the years.
And yeah, you guys got a lot of birds here. And it's hard to pick the right bird. You know?
It's very hard to pick the right bird.
Yeah.
And, it's a skill, and a lot of it's luck too. I mean, let's face it. I mean, pigeon racing is skill and luck.
Yeah.
You have to be lucky to be good.
Okay. So, who were your mentors when you started here in the Valley?
Well, I have to say, my number one mentor, obviously, over all the years, anybody that knows me, was Ed Lorenz. We were friends until he passed away for 35 years. I mean, he was at my wedding, and I've been married for 36 years. So.
Okay.
But my early mentors were Ed and Pete Lorenz, Marty Ladden. Marty wasn't real big on help, but when he did give you help, it meant something, Art Heath, I spoke to quite a bit. Rocky Lambert was always a good mentor. These guys are dead now, obviously. But most of my experience came from trial and error.
Okay. Your own experience.
My own experience, what I've learned over the 40 years. I've done it all. I mean, I've done every fad, every curve, everything you can think of today that people are saying you should do.
Yeah.
Everything people did and they don't do anymore. I've done it all. I mean, I could write a book on pigeons, just the experiences. I've been to Belgium twice. I've been in the best lofts in the world. I was in the number one champion in Belgium, Floor Engels, the year he won grand champion of all of Belgium. I handled the Stamvader, the number one pigeon in all of Belgium. I was in the De Prit Brothers loft. I was in Staff Van Riet, lean boars. I handled the best lean boars pigeons you can handle. I'm probably forgetting 10 names. I've handled just about Frank Arts. He had some of the best Van Loons I've ever seen. Now that's a loft. And I have some Van Loon in my blood.
Okay.
I do have a Van Loon pigeon that I crossed into my birds years and years ago.
Very good.
Super pigeons, just super pigeons. The Van Loons, to me, were the best Jansons to come.
Are those direct from Van Loon's or?
Well, no, the pigeon I got was from Frank Arts,
Oh, okay.
and he got them directly from Van Loon.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether he crossed into one of his, but it was a Van Loon, and it was a very good pigeon
Okay.
from Europe. And I brought in 20 babies from Europe. One of them was good. In my opinion, there's as good a birds here in the United States as there are in Europe. So don't waste your money bringing them in from Europe. I'm going to tell you that right now. Don't waste your money bringing in imported birds, because everybody thinks if they bring in a pigeon from Europe,
they're going to win.
They're going to win right away here. It doesn't work that way. And I'm going to give you another tip. If you do buy a pigeon, give it time to acclimate to your property. People buy pigeons and breed them a month later.
Yeah.
No good. It takes 1 year for the pigeon to acclimate, feel at home, and breed really well.
Okay. All right. So what is your main bloodline here, Carl?
My main bloodline is the Hormans, 100%. I have outcrosses in there, but the bulk of the pigeons are pigeons that I received from 1989. I bought 13 pigeons direct from Pete Lorenz. I bought pigeons from Ed Lorenz. I bought pigeons from Leo Lorenz. I have the original pedigrees from 1983 when Leo Lorenz passed away. I bought 6 pigeons direct from Leo that came from Pete Lorenz. And then over the years,
Hormans, okay.
Over the years, I've kept the Hormans as pure as anybody could keep them. You know, everybody says they have Hormans. They really don't.
But these the real Hormans right here. The House of Hormans.
These are the original. These go back to that Super 301 hen from 1989.
With a tick.
and her pedigree goes back to 1978. And those were when that's when Pete Lorenz brought the original Hormans in from Europe. The original 4 eggs that he brought in. My birds are direct descendants of those.
So can you tell us about your system, like selection of birds? Like adding to your loft, what's your main?
The main way, if I had a pigeon today, it would have to be a performance pigeon. It would have to have a tremendous breeding or flying record. I feel like, you know, I pretty much have more breeders than I could possibly ever breed from myself that I haven't even gotten to breeding yet. And I just inherited some birds from Ed Lorenz that are pretty quality, you know, they're fairly good quality pigeons. I didn't breed them the first year because I want them to acclimate a year, but this year I did cross them in. And so I have 6 birds from him. If 1 or 2 of those click with mine, I have another 10 years of outcrosses if I live that long.
All right. So, how about breeding? What do you look for pairing the breeders?
You know, it's a gut instinct. I've always wanted to just leave.
Do you look at the pedigrees?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I try to breed for certain characteristics off of certain birds. Like, I'll try to breed one of my best racing birds to one of my best breeders. And if they're related, I'm very careful as to how they're related. I don't mind if they're cousins, I love that. If they're nieces, nephews, uncles, that's okay. I don't want brothers or sisters or fathers to daughters or mother to sons.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that. But I look at the 2 birds in a cage together. Do they complement each other? Do they have the same characteristics? I don't try to correct flaws in one bird with another bird. I want the 2 birds to have the same characteristics so that the babies come out as good or better than the parents. I always want the babies to be better than the parents. If the babies are not as good as the parents, then it's a bad mating. If, you know, and again, I can't see inside their head. So to me, the basket is the ultimate test.
The basket.
You have to use the basket as the test.
All right. So how do you deal with sickness, Carl?
You know, I don't really get sick pigeons, to be honest with you. I haven't had a pigeon die here in so long. I mean, it's a problem for me because they get old, but they never die.
And you don't want to call birds.
I don't want to get rid of them, so now you see, it's like an old age home back there. You know, and I'm like, does anybody want some old pigeons? You know, they don't breed anymore, but I don't have the heart to get rid of them.
All right.
So, no, I mean, I don't try to cure sick pigeons unless I think it's something simple. In other words, if a pigeon is going light and a canker pill or a coxy pill or a wormer pill isn't going to turn that pigeon around, then I'm going to let it die. Yeah. If a pigeon is a young pigeon and its droppings have gone south because it came home from a race and it strained itself, and a pill won't turn that pigeon around, then I'll get rid of it. But as far as flock treating, I don't flock treat my breeders at all for anything. The same breeders that are 12 years old, I don't medicate them. I want them natural to breed. I want to know if they have a good constitution. And if they get sick in my breeding loft, then they're gone. They don't need to be here.
Okay.
As far as the race teams, if pigeons are racing every week, they're susceptible to other pigeons that they come in contact with. So I'm very careful to watch the way we ship our birds. I want to make sure that the drinkers are clean, that there aren't other sick birds in the crate. And the FEC, we're very good about that. If we see sick pigeons, if they have pox or if they have sickness, if they're throwing up, we pull them out of the crates right away. And that helps save a lot of pigeons. I don't flock treat my race team unless I'm losing every week. So by that I mean...
Losing the race? Or
yeah, I mean, if I'm not in the top 10 2 or 3 weeks in a row, I'll flock treat my race team. For just general coxy canker,
4-in-1
worms. Yeah, 4-in-1, 3-in-1, 10-in-1, whatever the hell they have out there. You open up a book.
So you medicate your birds.
I medicate my birds, yes. And
something's wrong because they're not performing. That's
exactly. Only if they're not performing. I mean, I've done it the other way too. I've gone 2 or 3 weeks where I didn't like the performance, and I've medicated the team, and they were worse the rest of the year.
Okay.
So it's a double-edged sword. I'm going to tell you guys out there right now. There's a time and a place for medicine in pigeon racing, but don't overdo it, don't abuse it, and don't think it's going to make you a champion. It's not. If anything, it could help you, and it can hurt you. That's really all I have to say about it. I open up these magazines today, and I look at what they're selling, and I'm amazed.
There's a lot.
I mean, people are spending hundreds of dollars on all these different medications every week. You know, I just don't believe in all that, unless you have to. I mean, if you have to, you have to. But don't think it's going to make you a champion. It's not. You need the pigeons. The pigeons need to be right. The loft needs to be right. You need to be right. You need to train them the right way. You can't abuse them. You got to know how far do they need to go. You know, how do you get sick pigeons? It's by overtraining them.
Stress.
So many guys make that mistake. I mean, I train once a week.
Once a week?
Once a week. That's it. 50 miles. That's it. You know, these guys are running up and down the road every day, you know.
There's your secret right there. Once a week. During the race.
Once a week.
During the race. During the race. Every week, 50 miles.
Once a week, 50 miles.
They rest. Or you loft fly them?
I loft fly them on the day they come, the next day after they come home from a race. I always loft fly them because pigeons will build up lactic acid.
Okay.
And when you just fly them even for 10 minutes around the house, they'll burn that off. Otherwise, it takes 3 days in the loft for them to burn off the lactic acid if they had a hard flight. So always loft fly your birds the next day. Let them rest the day they come home. Loft fly them the next day for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Make them fly 10 circles around the house. That's good enough. Don't push them.
Okay. Wow.
That's something that's, you know, very important for you younger guys to learn. Now, the rest of the time, they rest, or I'll loft fly them again. I don't have a problem loft flying except for the hawks. You know, the hawks today, they've changed the way guys race pigeons, the way I race pigeons. I can't stand losing a pigeon to a hawk. I really can't.
Yep.
And yet you can't harm the hawks because they're protected.
Yep.
So they cause you to have unnecessary loft flies. They cause the birds to be frightened.
Yeah.
They cause havoc if they get into your loft. Havoc. I mean, the birds are scared to come home from a race after that. So do everything you can to protect your loft. Don't ever let a hawk get inside your loft no matter what.
All right. So, I got a good question for you, Carl. What is your greatest achievement in pigeon racing?
Wow. Wow.
The best experience you ever had?
Well, listen, you know, I don't want to sit here and talk about my achievements. I mean, I think my biggest achievement was actually running the snowbird race in 2004. Mm-hmm. I ran that snowbird race. It was the biggest money snowbird race ever. It took a lot out of me. It was a lot of work. It was fantastically successful.
Snowbird race.
The Snowbird Classic in 2004, we had, I want to say, 500,000 in prizes and over 150,000 in pool money that guys shared. You know,
Wow.
it was.
That's a club race.
It was a club race. It was single liberation.
Wow.
But it was big. It was
a lot of birds.
People came from all over the world to fly in it, to be a part of it. In those days, it was the biggest thing. And people talked about it in Belgium. The FEC ran that race for 35 years. I won it myself in 2011. As far as what I contributed to the sport, I think that was one of my biggest achievements, just getting through it without hurting anybody.
Yeah.
You know, when you run a pigeon race, you're public enemy number one. So I think as far as a handler, I think winning a 500-mile race, I want to go back now and say it was actually I forget the year now, I think it was in 2021. I won the 500-mile race in our club. I had the first 3 birds. I had 8 of the top 12, and took all the pool money, all the prize money. And it was a hot day. I've never seen birds perform like that. I mean, I was shocked myself.
500 miles.
500 miles, won the race by 2 minutes with a 3-bird drop, and I had those birds pooled. I picked the ones that came. I actually picked them to win. They're in the stock loft now. I think that race, to me, you know, because a 500-mile race is a real pigeon race.
Not the 600?
I'm going to insult some people now. I'm going to hurt some people's feelings here, but I don't believe in 600-mile races. I've seen too many good pigeons. I lost the best bird in the country, the leading long-distance bird in the country, up until 550 miles, and I put it in a 600-mile race and lost it. It was my own stupidity. Pigeons are not made to fly 600 miles. They're not made to fly 800 miles. The best distance for a long-distance pigeon, the furthest is 500 miles, because the pigeon is still racing at 500 miles. I want pigeons that race. I don't want pigeons that stop, that have to eat, that have to drink. Mm-hmm. I don't want homers. You know, I got plenty of homers. I want real racing pigeons. And to me, a pigeon that gives you all it's got, 10 hours on the wing at a 500.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the ultimate racing pigeon. I value a 500-mile pigeon. If I get a pigeon in the top 10 at a 500, it goes right into my stock lot. And almost every time I'm going to breed good pigeons from it. I breed them from the 600-mile birds. I get homers. They come home, but they don't win the next year, you know. So if I can give anybody advice, it's like breed 400, 450, 500-mile pigeons. Breed around those birds and you'll be happy.
All right.
And I just want to say one thing. The futurity race last year, to me, was also my second biggest achievement in pigeons. It was one pigeon, but when that pigeon came home, and I couldn't even stand outside, and there was a 30-mile-an-hour headwind.
Oof, man.
And that pigeon came home, and I was 2 minutes in front of my biggest competitor. I said to myself, you finally made it. You finally arrived. I mean, you finally got the pigeons you want.
Wow. All right. All right. Hey, Carl, so if someone wants to buy from your best breeders, will you sell young birds from them?
Yes. I will today. I haven't in the past, but today I'm winding down my racing career, so yes, I will sell pigeons off my best birds, yes.
Okay. All right. Hey guys, so if you guys want birds, don't contact me. Contact Carl.
You know, again, depending on availability.
Okay.
And again, I'm always going to tell everybody the truth. Go to the best flyer in your area. Don't go to Belgium. Don't go to China. Don't go to Europe. I did all that. The best pigeons I got were from the guys in my area. Just go to the guys in your area. Don't be afraid they're going to sell you crap. Buy birds off the best breeders, young ones, because they're cheaper and you can breed them for years to come. And I always tell everybody, if you come to me, don't buy one pigeon, because I have a line-bred family.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go out of here with a hen and a cock, 2 hens and a cock, even 3 hens and 3 cocks, because you'll never need to buy pigeons again. You just put those 6 together, whatever they cost you, and you're going to have the nucleus of what it took me 40 years to breed.
Woo! All right. So how do you condition your birds before the race?
So conditioning, you have to learn what it looks like first. The pigeons will tell you when they're ready. For me personally, I could spot a pigeon that's, from 10 feet away if it's in form or not. But I'll tell the beginners, the best thing to look for is, of course, the normal stuff, the chalky white wattles, the bright eye, the pink underneath. I like to see a little red bubble because that tells me that the bird's hydrated, which is a whole nother subject. But you want your birds to be hydrated to be informed. They're never going to get informed if they're dehydrated. So, it goes back to the other point I make. Don't put too much crap in the water. When you're putting stuff in the water every day, the birds aren't drinking the water every day.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like when there's stuff in the water. You want to do a little test? Put apple cider vinegar in one drinker, put fresh water in the one next to it. See which one goes down 2 days later. So,
all right.
Don't get fooled with all this garlic and apple cider vinegar and oregano and all this other stuff, okay? Give your pigeons fresh water. Teach them to drink that. If you want to give them all the other supplements, put it on the feed. Don't put it in the water.
Plain water.
Clean water, except when they come home, I put electrolytes in the water that day. And
what electrolytes?
Electrolytes.
Like Belgasol?
Listen, that's a whole nother subject.
Brand.
I buy the cheapest shit. It's not because I'm cheap. It's because if you look at the expensive stuff, same ingredients are in the cheap stuff. I could show you chicken vitamins and chicken electrolytes for $6 a pack. And guys are buying this expensive, I won't name brands, you know, $30 a bottle. and if you read the bottle, it's sugar water. I mean, go get a teaspoon of sugar and throw it in your water. Get a teaspoon of honey. Stop buying these products that are you know, going to cost you a lot of money, and it's the same thing you have in your own kitchen. So again, getting back to form. The pigeons will tell you when they're in form. And by that I mean the droppings will be tight.
Solid, yeah.
Okay? They won't be moving around at night. They'll be quiet on their perch. They don't eat a lot. They don't have to drink a lot. They drink quickly. All those things you have to observe. If they're snuggled up with another bird, whether it's a hen or a cock, that's always a telltale sign that they're in form. If you give them a bath and they jump in the bath water and the bath water has
powder,
has the powder, white powder floating in it, that's another sign. So those are the things that I look for in form.
Okay. So your birds prove themselves time after time in club and one loft. How do you keep your good record year after year after year? Do you bring in other lines, or you just
I don't bring in anything. If anybody's seen me buy a pigeon, let me know.
You don't go auction online?
The only pigeon I bought in the last 2 years, and I will admit I bought a pigeon, I bought back my own bird from the Hoosier. It's the only pigeon I bought.
Oh, wow.
You handled him.
Yep.
You handled him. It's a cock. That's the only pigeon that I bought.
Okay.
In years. I mean, I'm trying to remember the last pigeon I bought. I accidentally bought one on iPigeon. Accidentally, because I was playing around trying to learn how to use the program.
Place bid.
And I was putting a bid in, and then they called me up and they said, "You own this pigeon." I said, "Who's it from? What did I pay?" I didn't even know. That was about 10 years ago.
Okay, what'd you do with that bird?
You know, that bird, I did breed it, and it actually bred a 500-mile winner with one of my Hormons. The mother,
500 mile. Okay.
Yeah, it was a 500-mile winner actually, and I kept him. He was I think a 2013 or 14. I kept him till he got weak and sick and went down, and then he had to go away. But yeah, I did get lucky with that one. I don't even remember who the guy was.
Do you vaccinate your birds? What do you vaccinate your birds?
I do. I vaccinate for pox, and I vaccinate for PMV, and I use that 3-in-1 vaccine, adeno, rotavirus, and I think it's adeno, rota, and PMV.
PMV. No salmonella. No salmonella.
No, I don't vaccinate for salmonella because I don't bring in birds. I don't have a rodent problem, so the less medicine and vaccinations I can, and plus it's expensive. Again, I mean, these things are $100 a bottle, and you know, I used them in the past, and I didn't see any difference. So now I don't bother with it anymore.
Okay. But you do pox.
I pox the birds right when I wean them.
Okay.
I vaccinate for PMV when I wean them, and I pox them at the same time.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. For
no booster.
No booster. I don't do a second booster.
Okay. So you said you do one loft race and one loft races. How do you select young birds to send to one loft races?
Okay. So, you know, listen, it's one loft racing. You might as well just take a bunch of bands in your hand and throw them in the air, and whatever comes down, take that one and send it. You know, one loft racing is a different animal. All the birds are going to the same place. They're all being released at the same time. Most of them just follow a few of them.
Yeah.
And you just gotta be lucky with a one loft race. So, you know, I try to pick them from a pair that's
prove themselves.
Something that's already come. But if you're sending out 20 or 30, nobody has 20 or 30 babies that are all from proven pairs. So Most of them are going to be from trial matings, and you keep your fingers crossed and hope one of them hits.
Okay. Ah, all right. How old do you send your young birds to one loft racing?
Generally speaking, I like them to drop their first flight.
First flight. So a month old.
Yeah,
right?
I would say closer to 40 to 45 days old.
Okay.
I'd rather they be a little older so that they can drink and eat, and and fend for themselves. I make sure that I feed them large grains. I make sure I don't use bullet drinkers, but I make sure that when I'm weaning the birds to send them out to one loft race, that I use bullet drinkers, because most of these one loft races, they don't have the same kind of drinking system that I have. So I want the birds to be used to drinking from a bullet drinker when they get there, because the worst thing that can happen is the bird gets
dehydrated.
It gets dehydrated, right?
Oh, okay. So, how did you come up with your loft design?
Well, my loft design has been a work in progress for the first 10 years it was here. Mostly, I would look at the guys, the champions of the valley in the past, and copy their loft design.
Okay.
With some modifications. I think the loft is critical. I think that my loft is a very healthy loft. You don't need to do anything. The birds are healthy and happy in there. I've tinkered with it, but not a lot. I have the wind turbines on the top.
Okay.
And most people say don't do that. I have solid floors. Most people say don't do that. I have box perches. Most people say don't do that. I feed them on a dirty floor. Most people say don't do that.
You do the opposite.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever works for you. I can tell you this, I try to make the sport enjoyable. I try to make it easy. Everything has to be easy for me. I don't want to be scraping lofts. My loft gets cleaned twice a month.
Really? Twice a month?
Twice a month. I have a guy come by. He's worked for me for 30 years. Same guy. He cleans my loft out twice a month.
Okay.
I feed the birds on the floor in between. And, I want my birds to build up immunity to everybody else that they're in the loft with.
Okay.
I don't believe in sanitary, super sanitary
Super clean,
lofts.
yeah.
Now, I do believe in sanitary drinkers.
Mm-hmm.
The drinkers have to be clean. I do wash them out with Clorox. I believe most disease spreads in the drinker from the drinkers.
Oh.
So I make sure my water's changed every single day.
Do you take out the water every night or just leave it?
No, I leave it overnight, but what I do on a sunny day, I throw the water out in the morning and I leave the drinkers on my landing board in the sun to dry out.
Okay.
So when they dry out, all the bacteria is dead.
Okay.
And then I rinse them out quickly and I put them right back again.
All right.
So there's little things that you have to really, really pay attention to that can ruin your season or make your season. And Ed Lorenz taught us, and I always said he was a mentor. The guy who makes the least mistakes is the winner.
That's what Bruno said too.
That was one of Ed's favorite lines. He always told me that. Make sure you're the guy who makes the least amount of mistakes.
Oh.
And so I try to do that. I try to cover every base. It's when you think about it, it's common sense. It's common sense. I mean, things that drive me crazy. I'll come down to my club. There'll be guys down there that haven't won a race in 10 years. They'll have a crate of birds. They'll have 20 birds in a crate.
Mm-hmm.
The birds are are stuck together. They're pecking each other.
Yep.
And I'm looking at that and I'm going, this guy has no chance of beating me. None. Zero.
Yep.
Just with the birds being dehydrated, rubbing up against each other.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean, just little things like that. You know, I don't say anything to them.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
They might get offended.
they get offended
Yeah.
and they think you're, you know, who the hell does he think he is?
Yeah.
You know, I'll be honest with you. I mean, nobody in my club comes to me for advice, pretty much ever. Am I offended by that? Yeah, maybe a little. Maybe a little, you know, maybe.
Nobody, huh? Okay.
You know. And again, if they do come to you, they want to know, you know, what are you medicating with? Everything's medicine.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks winning comes in a bottle. I'm hoping by sitting with you here that you're realizing, and others will realize, that that's not the way to win pigeon races. You know, success doesn't come from a bottle. You can't spend $30 on electrolytes and think you're going to win.
Yep.
Yes, electrolytes are important. You can spend $6 on them, or you can spend $30.
They're the same. Huh?
It's all the same. And the medications are all the same. Some come in a fancy bottle, some come in just a simple wrapper. Some at $35 and some are, you know, $25.
All right. So, what is the most important part of your loft?
I think the most important part of my loft, I have to say, is probably the ventilation.
Ventilation.
Yeah, my loft, I've spent a long time getting the ventilation right. And I think that, you know, I'd go in there at night with a cigar. I used to smoke cigars.
Okay.
So I'd go in there with my cigar and I'd sit there while I'm feeding the birds and then I'd watch the cigar smoke. How did it go out?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or was it going out? At a time it wasn't. And I said, wait a minute. The cigar smoke isn't leaving, neither is the bacteria or the dust or anything. So I tinker with it. I put the whirlybirds on the top. Now the air goes out, and I'm saying, wait a minute, there's a draft in here. Now it's going out too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tinker with it. I'd close the vents up a little bit with some paper, you know, some mesh to stop the flow.
The draft, yeah.
I'd move my perches to the back of the loft instead of the side so that the airflow didn't hit the pigeons when they were on the perches. All those things, I mean, they're all critical.
Okay.
I'll tell you how I learned about them. I had a loft in 1987. It was in Northridge. My fronts were open. They were wide open. Snowbird race was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I went in the loft one night and I heard rattling, like the birds were breathing.
Really?
Heavy.
Okay.
So I forget who I called. Maybe it was Don Jones. Maybe it was Ed. I said, hey, my birds are like breathing heavy. The futurity race is like the snowbird race is in 2 weeks. You know, what's going on? Somebody came to my house and said, your loft is, you know, facing the north. The wind comes from the north and it's wide open. You know, you got to close it up. So I did that. I got, you know,
Plywood,
I got plexiglass.
Oh, okay.
Covered it up. And yes, that is one time when I medicated the whole flock.
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
I said right away. They said you got to put your birds on medicine. They got respiratory. They're breathing heavy. I medicated the whole flock. I was 7th in the race, and you know that's one time the medicated was needed. It worked, you know.
Yeah.
But the moral of the story is I learned don't keep the front of your loft wide open if you're facing, you know, the way the wind blows at night. The birds, you know, they're constantly getting hit with a breeze. So when I designed this loft, I designed it with the windows that open and close so I can regulate how much wind and how much air comes in different times of the year. And that's why I don't need medicine, because the birds don't get sick anymore.
Okay. All right. So, do you do darkening or light system
Okay, so
during young bird season?
I started out in 2002 when I think I had a run between 2002 and 2015 where I was just unstoppable, and I flew darkening.
Darkening. Oh.
I flew darkening. I actually flew.
No one couldn't beat you. Like,
really couldn't be beat. I was getting 7 and 8 bird drops, you know, in the front of everybody. It was, you know, it was pretty ugly. And you know, you don't make a lot of friends when you're winning every week.
Yep.
I mean, right away, everybody's accusing you of using drugs
Yep.
and this and that. You know, they want to know what you're doing. But I was doing darkening, and I kind of did my own version of it. I kind of tinkered with it because, again, I don't want the pigeons to be a job. Mm-hmm. It has to be a hobby. It has to be fun. It has to be easy.
Yep.
And darkening became, I started changing my loft, and darkening became such a burden on me because I had to be home certain hours to darken and lighten. I'd have timers going on and off, and I said, I don't want to fly pigeons this way. I don't care about the money part of it. I want it to be a hobby. I want it to be fun, and I want it to fit around my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2015, I changed to lighting. I flew young birds on a lighting system. And I still do today. Lights. But my lighting system, it couldn't be any simpler. I mean, again, I take the lazy man approach whenever I can. I just leave the lights on 24 hours a day. And I do that for 3 or 4 months. And then I turn the lights off, and it becomes a dark day for the pigeons. So they molt out faster that way. The lights are on, they go through the wing.
For how many months?
I like the bird. Well, from the time that they're born, I put them right in the lights. I don't like the breeders. I like just the flyers.
Okay.
So from the time that they're born, I light the flyers up 24 hours a day. The babies, rather. You know.
Yeah.
24 hours a day until June 15th. And
June 15th. Okay.
And then I turn the longest day of the year is June 21st. So the days are going to start shortening on the summer solstice.
Yeah.
On that day. So I want to be as close to that day as I can. I pulled 3 or 4 flights. I pull the tails. I put them on the lights.
You pull 4 flights?
I pull up to 4. Sometimes I'll pull 4 flights, yes. Most of the time 3.
The same time?
Yeah. I mean, June 15th, everything, the birds, the lights go off, the tails and the flights get pulled.
They molt.
And they sit for 6 weeks in the loft. They molt the body then. At the end of 6 weeks, the wings are full, bodies are clean, they're ready to start training. It's that simple.
So you don't start training first. So you pull flights, but they've been loft flying, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. I train my birds very young. My birds are trained when they're squeaking in a box. You know, they're still squeaking when I'm training them up the road.
Oh, so you road train them first?
I train them first.
How many months?
They're on the lights, but while they're on the lights, I take them, you know, like I said before we talked about, I don't go far. I go 1 mile. I get them used to the box first.
Yeah.
Then I take them 1 mile. Then I take them 5 miles. Then I take them 10 miles. Then I'll probably go up to 30 miles, the most. And they're still squeaking, but they come home.
Okay.
And so when they get shut down, they've already been trained. Now, last year I couldn't do that. I had too many things going on. Yeah. I just couldn't train them. But normally, if I have the time, I want to train them before I shut them down and pull the flights.
Okay. 30 miles, then you shut
now
them
this
down.
year, because I didn't fly young birds, I didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
I didn't train them. I didn't pull the flights. I didn't do anything. I'm just going to fly them as old birds.
Okay.